Alright, I'm making some more progress on my redneck mobility buggy. I ain't been making many videos on it lately. I've been preoccupied with other stuff. But I finally got to the point where I've got a set of shocks. They have a few inches of travel, 2 or 3. 2, looks like it. They're not the best. I did design that swing arm for only about 3 inches of travel, so smaller, low travel shocks are fine. That's what I wanted. I just needed them to have a good enough spring rate that little bit of travel is what I want. So these are fairly stiff. So finding the right place to put them and how far over and whatnot to give them the right softness that I want. So I've been experimenting with that, whatnot, and welding temporary like little bolts sticking out of parts so I can pop them on there. And I've been designing the mount. So I don't remember how it. I'm no professional, obviously. I'm thinking it makes sense to put them facing down so that water and stuff can't settle on that seal in there and then leak in there. So I don't remember. You could mount them this way, but this part's steel, this part's aluminum. So I'm assuming they were intended to mount this way because that would take all the downforce, all the brunt of it, and it would keep water from settling on the seal. So that's how I'm going to mount them, which means my little bracket here, which I don't know yet if I'm going to mount them with the little lip this way around or this way around. It depends on where I end up putting them on there, and I'll probably have to build some more parts to make these reach, or to connect to these. These are going to be the brackets though, and I've just got done with the first one. So, and I've got them bolts. They seem to be pretty strong. I just got them. I didn't have anything in my hoard, and I kept digging and digging and didn't have the right stuff long enough for the right diameter or nothing. Those are slightly too small a diameter, but they'll work. These things came with a cheap little bit of plastic in them. It's damn near perfect. So these threads will probably cut right through all that. I wish I'd have bought the right ones with the no threads right about where they need to go. I just didn't know. It's all experimenting, figuring out. I can always replace that stuff later. But yeah, so this is the bottom one hole. I did have 3 holes, and then I eventually, as you can see, that's the because these were welded together when I cut them out and made them and stuff, and then I took them apart to start, you know, really brainstorming and figuring it out. And the holes are all lined up. It's hard to do it with this camera in front of me, but yeah, so I'll probably end up cutting that one out, even though on the shape where I want them, it's like lopsided, so you'd think one side, the lower side, would be longer. That's why I said I might need to make some other bits of metal that make it all work, because I'm just going to do it the simple way and just cut 4 symmetrical things, you know, like when you buy the kits that are just the 4 same pieces, and then you just got to figure it out from there. And that's what I'm doing basically. And then I've got my top one, which I've already made enough clearance for it to, I doubt that I'll need it to be that much. I think they're going to go right about in the middle, right? So I tested them yesterday, wedged them right there, just in front of the pivot, because the pivot point's here. I tested them there with the top part about there and about that angle. And that was a bit too soft, even with just one of them. I was only testing one, not both of them, because I was too lazy. And then I had them all the way back directly over the axle. So that was way too stiff. That seemed to be too soft, even if I had 2 of them. So I'm going to go and just split the difference, you know, as you do. And just put them right in the middle and see how that goes. And then I've got, you know, if they're too soft at the lowest bit and they're bottoming out, then I'll raise it up. And then when I'm not sitting on it and stuff and there's not much weight, then I guess that means it'll look kind of like it does now, with, you know, raised up. And then when I sit on it, it'll settle back to where I want it. Hopefully they're not so soft that they're just done immediately and just squishing and bottoming out. These are pretty good springs, so we'll see. Like I said, from what I was testing on them yesterday and pushing on them and whatnot, I think they're going to be perfect for where I'm putting them and how much weight overall is going to be on this thing on average. Plus there's going to be like a 60-pound battery sitting right over them, on top of 100, you know, with 180 pounds of me sitting there. So, and I'm not smart, but I think these are supposed to be rated for like between 350 and 450 pounds, but that's probably not what that stands for. Focus. There's words there, camera. Camera. You can do it. Guess not. But it says 350 hashtag 450. Literally, it has a hashtag. I don't know what all that means, and when I was looking up stuff, I had no clue. I'm just kind of guessing here as usual. So, these will do for now. And they were cheap. Someone helped me to get them, but these were the cheapest ones that seemed like not bicycle shocks that wouldn't just definitely bottom out. Because I have springs that are like that already, like the ones in bicycle shocks. They're off of the seat for the lawnmower. Those things are, you know, they're like the little springs for the bicycle shocks. They're pretty squishy. I could have just tried to use those. I might still use them on the front end once I redesign the front end and make it different. I've decided I'm going to lighten up the front end. I'm going to see if I can get it to where it'll do wheelies. Because it tries to do a wheelie. It did lift the front tire when it had the smaller little tires on the back. And so since that hub motor and all that's still pretty heavy and it's all up front, whenever I go to change it to have 4 wheels, that's going to add more weight, but I'm going to try and do it in ways that keeps the weight further back. Just because I want to see it pop a wheelie without pulling too much more power to do it. So, it tries to already. Jumps the tire up, so... Oh, that's my neighbor's. Anyways, it jumps the tire up already, so... Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, it's coming along. Sorry some of my videos are a little stupid. I get high sometimes and just make dumb videos. But, yeah, I got this thing on the back patio for now. I'm gonna disassemble the front end and just use the spindles and the pre-made little arm there for the front end, and probably those are brand new wheels. Those are the ones I had on the back of the scooter before I made it rear wheel drive. So I'll probably use those wheels for the front and those spindles and that arm that's just held on with a single bolt that just pivots like this. I'm not going to use the steering or none of that. Or the connector tie rod or whatever it's called. I have the rack and pinion and stuff. Or the rack. I have a rack and pinion and all that'll fit there, and I'll have to make and I'll just adapt my current steering, the forks and stuff, to be just like steering. I'll cut off the forks and make the parts out of that. But I got to make a whole frame on the front end to support that strong. But I don't want it to be too heavy, so I got to, design it a little better. But yeah, so for now that mower's just sitting there until I slowly disassemble it. It took forever to reorganize this back patio. And that frame, the 4-wheel drive project, is probably going to get scrapped at this point. Well, the frame's not getting scrapped. Like, I'm going to use the frame for a different project. Probably a mini camper, which is something I've been wanting to build for a while. But, I could, once I get this figured out, swap the parts over to that frame and then build the front end onto that. I could do all that this summer, but there's some other... I might be moving, so I don't want to get stuck in it. I want to keep this one going. I don't want to start disassembling this one anytime soon. I might be moving soon, so I don't know yet. So I'm just kind of get the suspension going so that it's a little more comfortable. And I'll probably end up moving the bumper a little bit. I don't know if it's going to end up getting moved up or back, or not far from where it's at, but just shimmied a little bit because of the tires. And then eventually I've got to start working on the fenders, which all that stuff, I've got a shit ton of tires and parts laying back there, mostly tires and wheels and things. So all that's back there, but yeah. So I gotta make the fenders, all that, and I'm hoping to have the body itself eventually have another pillar, coming up here, so there's room behind the seat. So down here will be where the 12-volt big-ass battery is, and eventually I'll have another panel on the roof and all that. And it'll be behind the seat storage with a little bit of a hatch or something, so that I can just not have the wagon every single time I want to go get some groceries or whatever, and I don't have to throw them in the floorboard at my feet. So it's slowly evolving into something actually practical, but It takes time, a lot of time, and a lot of testing and lazy prototyping. I don't have the energy or the know-how to do it right the first time every time. Just got to do it in general. Don't be afraid to fuck up and figure it out. That's all that is. Yeah, it's not too terrible. It's getting better a little at a time. But yeah, that's all for now. Alright, I'm working on it again, trying to get the suspension on there. I had to pull the whole axle, and to do that, because I was too ornery to unwire the motor, I went ahead and did this, which should need to be done anyways to make the motor easily removable. I'm going to adapt it before I put it back. I'm not going to weld it back together the way it was or anything. I'm going to change that side so the motor can always be easily removable. I never anticipated pulling the motor straight. Like, the motor and diff as a unit was removable this way, but I didn't want to pull the whole diff and all that, so I just wanted to pull the motor because it had the wire and leave that over there. I've got the scooter sitting there, and I'm getting ready to work on the suspension. I made the lower mounts over the last couple of days, brainstorming, figuring out how I want them to be shaped. This one's got the bottom corner cut off because I was thinking of something else, but this one doesn't because I decided it's not necessary. But other than that, they're pretty much the same. And then this beefy ass part of an old desk chair arm, why it's overkill for the desk chair it was on, but whatever, I'll use it. I'm going to cut, a plate out of it. And that plate that I cut out is going to go here somewhere, and I've already checked this U-joint clears where I'm going to be welding it. It won't hit it. And then this shock will be somewhere around there. I'm thinking I'm going to put it about here, in line with that point. Which I've always planned on putting some sort of brace there anyways. It's about time I get it done, and that thick plate will be good for the job. While I've got it off, I should take this opportunity to cut the steering stops I made, or the welded little bits I made, because this used to be a steering axle, and then do a realignment, try my best to do a little better. I should. Doesn't mean I'm going to, but because it does if you, I don't know, it hops sometimes, like gallops, because the axles spin true and straight where they are, but with one another, that's a different story. Like, they seem to eyeball and all that, but just like at certain speeds, and it could just be the roads, certain sections of the roads, I don't know. I feel like they're off just ever so slightly enough to where every now and then it makes a difference, and I notice it more. But either way, I might, if I get the energy to mess around with that, I might do that. While I got it off, I might not. I don't know. But, yeah. So, yeah, on that side, it's going to go about there, and the same thing on the other side. And I was struggling with figuring out, because this is the top. I was struggling with figuring out I ain't made the upper mounts yet, but they're kind of basic. I only have the adjustable bit here on the bottom. And I did have 3, and then I decided just these 2. Because that little one in the middle on it, for the type of shocks I've got here, there's not a lot of play in them and whatnot, and I don't know. So I just went with the 2. And they'll get a piece welded across the bottom here too. Once I'm done, I just ain't, I gotta get it all done and then finish it up, finalize it. But this is the general mount. And this was 2 I welded together. That's about like it was when I bought it though, because this is actually, if you remember, that was a section of like 3 or 4 by 2 square tubing, like a 2x4 basically, but metal, and it was, about that thick when I bought it, so I probably could have got away with just getting another one of those and then shaping it like this, but, whatever. This is what I had, and I only had the pieces left over from that stuff that I cut in half, so, yeah, it works. Kind of looks like it did from the factory whenever I cut that one apart and noticed all the weld seams. On this side, it looks like that. It looks nice. On this side, I welded it and I only kind of smoothed it enough to when I put it on the thing and weld it, it will sit less annoyingly. but I don't really care as much. Anyways, so yeah, the upper mount is just going to be a basic, you know, kind of like just that, or just one side, one piece that's like, I forget which way I don't want any side-to-side sway, so I think it's going to be orientated this way, even with this mount. So nothing that allows it to easily go this way. But yeah, and instead of figuring out where I'm going to weld those mounts to the frame, to make this more removable and universal, because that frame's a piece of shit and it's not going to be around for long. This one's a piece of shit, but it's going to last a lot longer. I'm going to make the mounts connected and then have a connector thick bar going across, and then that'll be what either bolts or gets welded to the frame underneath, and then that'll be relatively easier to remove in the future to put on other frames or whatever else I want. So that'll work for that. So it'll be an all-in-one suspension unit, basically rear end unit. And I might eventually take the time to go ahead and make because I was thinking about taking that front end off and putting it on my scooter, or even contemplating taking that front end off and putting it on that frame, which I don't know. And then eventually putting this on the rear end of that frame. I don't know. I need more money. There's a lot that I want to do, but compromising with the parts I have laying around, you know, figuring it all out. But yeah, so it'll finally have suspension, real suspension, real-ish. So I guess that's considered real. I don't know. They're going to be mounted with this steel side down, the aluminum side up, and that's also where the seal is there, so no rain will hopefully be able to sit in it. So it'll be, I don't know, that's not where it's going to sit. So it'll have, you know, some play, you know, and I'll be able to, while that's not attached to the frame, I'll be able to play with the lean, because I'll make it a little tall enough to move it forward a little bit, back and forth, and play with the lean. And then I'll probably just weld it to the bottom side of the frame once I get a good spot figured out. Yeah, and figure out the cushiony, because I had been experimenting figuring out how far from the pivot point I wanted it and what lean and all that, because these are fairly stiff shocks for what they are, but this thing is also fairly heavy for what it is. So just finding the butter zone wherever I want it, and remembering that I'm going to be adding more weight to that, another big battery pretty much directly over the shocks. So yeah, don't want to have too much squish, but yep, that's pretty much all there is to it. Now I took the old workbench in and I turned that cut up dresser I did into this. It's not finished yet. I put a piece of plywood in the bottom to reinforce it, and I need to put I took the piece of paneling off for something else on the back, but I need to put another thing there. I need to mount my extension cord thing, my multiplier. I need to put a back bit which protects wherever it's sitting, because this side is going to be, well, either side, just right now it's up against that, but I can stick my legs under comfortably with my stool that I sit in, and I can weld without burning holes and everything. I need to one of these days get like a full welding gear. These ain't even for welding, but I just got them because they were cheap. And they're actually leather, well, suede leather, whatever. They're good enough. I've been welding in them and stuff, so they won't take as much heat, but they also won't immediately just burn up either. So that's good. And they're just some cheapos or whatever. But yeah, so it took me forever to get that on here through this. I had to take one wheel off the rear, because it just barely was like 1.5 inches. And it was flat, so I probably could have got away with brute force and squishing it in. And either way, I took one wheel off and then lifted the whole front end straight up. Damn near killed me. I overworked myself. It about fell on me like 2 or 3 times. I about passed out, whatever. I finally got it to where I could turn it, and it took me a long time to figure that out. And all that might be for naught, because I might be forced to move this summer because they're raising my rent. And yeah, let's not get into that can of beans. But yeah, I'll show more as it goes on. Oh, got blurry there. But yeah, it's real blurry. Either way, that's all for now. Alright, I got the plates attached, and I just got done over there. I took it over there to the scooter because the motor's still wired onto it, and I tested out with one of my mounts in the shock to figure out where and whatnot, because, you know, when I go to change everything, I want to make sure the motor can pull out. So on this side is the side I got to pay attention to. And as it turns out, where I was hoping I could mount it, which was right here on the corner of this, just like that, is still in the way, even if I cut this tab off and leave just this little bit down here. Anything basically below, I scratched a little line right there, anything below that is in the way of the motor. So is this still, but I've not got, I just kind of cut it and then hammered I had a worn out disc and I was too ornery to change it. Couldn't get all the way deep in there, so I just kind of hammered it. But that's because I plan on changing this. But either way, I did 2 days worth of work on this because I'm slow and tired and sore. I did 1 day designing one piece, one half of this, figuring out how I would go about it, just sizing up and thinking I'd put them about right here and whatnot, and figuring it all out, or trying to figure it all out. And I came up with figuring this would be a good design, and spent another day, the day after, cutting out multiple of them, shaping them, and then welding together. So pretty much 2 days on these brackets, and it turns out I'm just going to cut it about right here and just use that half of each one of them. And I'm going to cut it at a bit of an angle like that, so that when it's on there it's kind of its own gussets, or shaped like that, you know. But yeah, I was like, well, I'll have 3 points of contact, or 3 points of adjustment, and then I was like, well, I'll have 2 points of adjustment, and now it's no points of adjustment. And I'm pretty sure these shocks are not, you can't adjust the preload on them either. I don't see any threads anywhere, and I haven't tried, there's no way to get a wrench or nothing. There's no special slot or nothing on it. These are non-adjustable shocks. They just are what they are. You just gotta, the only adjustment you get is if you make adjustable mounts, and well, the only good thing is I'll still be able to, with the top part, when I go to put it all back together, I'll be able to figure out by the lean. So hopefully I get that right. That's the only point of adjustment I will have, is the lean, which will change the spring rate, or change, you know, how much weight it takes to squish it or whatever. So I'll just have to do that. Either way, I needed a mount here, and these, like I said, are off of a desk chair, and they're for like changing it looks like a shifter thing, but like it's for changing the arms and hand things on a desk chair. But either way, I welded them on good enough anyways. They're thick and on there, and they don't interfere with the axles, or at least they shouldn't. Yeah, they don't. Now whether or not these things wobble and vibrate when I'm going, I don't know. I might have to reach in behind there with the Dremel and do some clearance if that's the case. But for now, everything's fine. I just, you know, kind of sucks I don't get as much adjustment as I wanted. But, you know, put them right there on that corner, on each corner. And it's getting about time to where I got to make the top mounts. I still haven't made the top mounts yet because, you know, do it one little step at a time. And I'm thinking the only thing I have decent enough if I want to make a cross piece to connect them both is that piece of fence post, because I'm about out of good steel or anything worth a damn. So I think I'll use that piece of fence post. It will be all the way across to up against the bottom of the frame and probably welded, so it's not a big deal. That's just so they're connected. Makes it easier on me, mostly, so I can go ahead and weld and attach the top mounts to something that keeps them in line, and then that'll, I don't know, it'll just be easier on me. It adds more weight, but This thing's supposed to be big and heavy. I don't want the wind. It gets extremely windy around here. My scooter before, when it was lightweight, has blown all the way around the corner of a building. Like, I had it in the parking space, and somehow the wind steered it and everything and blew it all the way around the corner of the building. Multiple people saw it, and if they didn't seem genuine in their description of it, I wouldn't have believed them, but I was in the store when it came out and that happened, but it was too lightweight. Now it's got the gearbox, gives it all the torque I need, and the heavy, not too, I don't want it to be too heavy, but, you know, got to have it plenty heavy enough to have traction. And I think it's going to be about 300 to 400 pounds when I'm done with it, which is about the maximum weight limit for a large mobility scooter. So somewhere around there, I think, 450 or so, which is about what these shocks are rated for. So yeah, which a lot of that'll be on spring weight, you know, this and the tires. But then that frame is very, very heavy. Even when I change out the front end and get rid of the beefy front forks and the front hub motor and put wheels on the front of it, 2 wheels instead, it'll still be heavy on the front because of all that extra other stuff I'm adding back to it. So overall, this is heavy. Gives it traction though. Makes it where the wind can't blow it around, so that's good. But yeah, I'm gonna rest up a bit and then cut those out, weld those on, and then take it from there. I ain't really figured out what the next step is after that. I think, yeah, go ahead and once I got those on, bolt the shocks on, kind of figure out the spacing for that, cut that thing to length. Here, let me get the light to where it fucking shows you. Well, this thing, goddamn camera. Yeah, this thing, or not. I don't really want to use this. This is one of the thinner ones too, the ones that are easy to bend when you're trying to pull them out of the ground. The thicker ones, the ones that are harder to bend, is what I made the forks out of. This is a different gauge. I don't think I have anything in my hoard left that's usable for this. I mean, I've got some of that square tubing from the old diff mount there that I've been slowly cutting pieces off of, but it's thinner gauge and whatnot. I feel like it would be a worse option. This is about all I got for now that's relatively good enough. I'll use it. Gotta figure out how I want to lay it though, because I don't know yet. We'll get to that point. I really don't know yet. I'm making a lot of this up as I go. I know what the end goal needs to be. Just using the materials I got laying around to get there. That's the jigsaw puzzle. Alright, and that's all for now. Alright, it damn near killed me, but I finally got the shocks back on it. Or on it. I had them on it and mounted in the same place last night. And then I squish tested it, and it passed the squish test. Well, I thought it did. This morning I decided I changed my mind, but that just means changing out the shocks. I'm not going to change the mount. I am going to reinforce it. This mount is just temporary and janky. Because my welding helmet's kind of fucky and I'm welding blind. So, all the shear force is going that way. That's why the little washers are kind of temporary, shitty gussets. This is all kind of bird shit. It's not booger welded because I can't see what the fuck I'm doing, which most of my welds look ugly anyways, but they're better than that, usually. But yeah. So that's the bar that goes across that made it easier on me to figure out where I wanted it, and that's about where I want it. If I lean it over any further, it's just going to have too much shear force. I'm going to have to build a beefy-ass fucking mount. I don't want to... Not right now, anyways. Maybe in the future. But I mean, I can just get different shocks eventually of the same length. This is like a standard length, I believe. I got to look it up again. But yeah, I just get adjustable ones, and that'll solve some of that problem. And yeah, it's on its hitch right now, just like doing a wheelie, because I was staring at it trying to think about what to do about the stiffness. It's a little stiffer than I would like. It still squishes, but that's in the extreme, like with all the weight on the hitch, with me standing and jumping on the hitch. With me sitting in the seat, which is forward of the shocks, it's a little stiff. So I'll have to get softer shocks, and then next month when I can afford a new helmet, I'll redo that mount and make it better. Let's see. Let's show it from this weird angle. Not that it does wheelies. It chirps and tries to pick up the front wheel, but it doesn't fully do wheelies, or at least it didn't. I don't think it will either, but you know, that's it. So I got it. I'm gonna put it back down and wheel it around front, clean up my mess. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. It's a coming along. Oh, and I don't know if I showed it, but the split where I had to cut out a section of frame to remove the motor. And the motor is removable now, only if this shock is pointing straight up here. But yeah, this is my temporary splint. This is all just making it work so I can get to the store and back. So if I ever have a house with a garage and more energy, I'd make a, you know, as they do, try to make it more efficient and better looking, but I ain't blessed with that kind of stuff. So, you know, I do what I do what I gotta do. But that's all. Like, subscribe, leave a comment.